Hi, my name's Scott Farber, and I'm the president and one of the co-founders of A-List Education. And I'm here to talk about the SAT and the ACT and how best to prepare for these exams. But before we begin, I'm going to give you a little bit of my personal background and how I came to be doing this. Because I can't imagine that anybody wakes up one day and decides, yes, I'm going to be an SAT instructor, or sweet, I'm going to be an ACT instructor. So how did I get to do all of this? Truth of the matter was, in high school, I didn't really understand how standardized tests really interacted with the college application process. My mother got me some pencils and a calculator and said, good luck. We tell our students often that when they apply to college, it's important that they're well-rounded, they're involved in many extracurricular activities, and they do well in school. And often we try and treat the exams like the SAT and ACT as afterthoughts. Now, to be fair, our students are more than numbers on a piece of paper. But at the same time, scores on the SAT and the ACT matter quite a bit to many colleges because it's a way for them to be able to compare students across different states and different schools and come up with a way to rank the students' readiness to do well at their particular universities. Now, I did well on my SATs when I took them in high school, but I didn't have any preparation. Since that time, the competition for college spots has only gotten fiercer. More students are applying to college, not only from the United States, but from overseas as well. And not only are there more applicants, more students are applying to more schools. Now, when it came time to apply for me, I didn't really know exactly where I wanted to go to school, but I knew that financial aid was going to be a big, important component of my college application. It wasn't about just where I was going to get into school, but how I was going to be able to afford to pay for it. Now, when we think about these exams, I'd like to try and recast them, not as the big evil things that stand in the way of students getting into college, but rather as an opportunity for students to be able to count themselves into consideration in the college piles. Luckily, I scored high enough to not only get entrance into some great schools, but ultimately to earn nearly a full ride to Harvard University. I would have never had that opportunity despite all the extracurricular activities I was involved in and despite all of the hard work I put into high school to be in that pile of potential candidates for great schools if my SAT scores hadn't counted me into consideration. Now, I got my degree in international relations with no particular plan to ever get involved in education. Both my parents were in education, and the truth is, I wanted to stay as far away from anything they ever did as I possibly could. You never want to be like your parents. But it turns out I'm a lot more like them than I would have cared to admit at the time. I think Mark Twain said it best. I left home at 18 thinking my parents were the stupidest people I'd ever met. Returned home in 7 years, surprised at how much they had learned. My parents were right when they said that I would enjoy education. And when I got back at the end of college to think about my career, the truth was I wanted to figure out how I could build something. I wanted to leave behind something that would make the world a bit better than how I had found it. And education really is that opportunity. The thing about these tests is they're not like traditional classes. In school, many of our students learn to memorize content. They memorize facts and formulas and figures and dates. And while it's important to know things, these tests aren't testing what you know as much as they're testing how you apply what you know, which means that the SAT and the ACT look very different than what most of our students are used to when they get ready for big exams. It's our job to be able to make sure that students understand that this will draw on different types of skills than a traditional content test. The first job that I had was working at an SAT company that did standardized test preparation, much like many of us have heard of, a class taking place over the course of a couple of weeks. And while the courses were effective, I felt that there was something missing. And with my partners, we took a look at the educational landscape and decided that there was an opportunity to deliver instruction in a non-traditional way. Not just to teach students a number of tricks and tips and techniques, but really also to build some fundamental skills. Because again, we don't want our students focused just on the number of an SAT or an ACT. We want them to understand that in order to do well, it's not just being a good test taker. It's about understanding how to read well. It's to understand how to support answers with evidence. It's about being careful in math sections. It's about drawing conclusions from data being presented. And it's about being able to master the English language. That's really what these tests are. So we set out in 2005 to formalize this slightly different brand of test prep, and we formed A-List Education. We started with about 5 students in 2005, and since 2005, in the last 9 years, we've grown to serve more than 30,000 students in 20 states through our professional development programs, through our direct instruction, through our books, through our technology. What we're really looking to do, and not just these videos, but in an overarching way at A-List Education, is help students connect with future success. These videos are an attempt to connect that success with the instructor standing in front of them at the front of a classroom. What we'll do over the following videos is take a look at the test itself, the underlying structure and format, as well as all of the skills necessary to help students succeed. Now, we'll do that using our books, the books of knowledge, which will take you through all of the content on the exams. But at various times, I'll also share personal stories because I've now, at this point, taught about 4,000 kids myself, spent about 12,000 hours providing instruction. I know that's a lot of time. I've also taken more than 100 SATs and PSATs and ACTs, and that makes me a super nerd. But it also means that I've got a deep and abiding understanding of how these tests work. There's no one way to prepare, but our goal here is to provide as much background, as much context, as much experience as we possibly can to help you as you begin the path towards preparation for the SAT and the ACT.